Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to our webinar today. We got a great webinar lined up for you. I'm going to give you guys maybe a minute to come in. I see we already have quite a few people already, so we're excited to have you here. Like I said, in about a minute, I will introduce our speakers and what we're talking about. For those of you already here, I've got an icebreaker question for you, and it's kind of a boring one, but it's not that boring because if you're here. What is one of your top marketing challenges this year? It could be anything. I'm actually going to put mine in the chat. So there's a chat window on your right. One of my biggest challenges is attribution. But anything that you're dealing with in particular, maybe it's a challenge that you're excited about. Maybe it's something that keeps you up at night. Maybe it's something that's giving you gray hairs and high blood pressure. Whatever it is, put it in the chat. I'm just curious. All three of us here on the panel today are marketers, so it'll be interesting for discussion. Nick, great to see you. Lead to appointment set rate, which is why he's here. Love that. TCPA compliance, I hear you, Ray. That one is a big one. Lead appointment to set rate. Kevin, branding for expansion. Glad to hear that, and I'm going to be picking your brain about that in this webinar. Joshua says lead to appointment set rate, how to get a high conversion rate. Joshua, having real big issues currently getting people on the phone. That is a tough one, Joshua. I hear you. Procuring better qualified leads. That's another tough one, Jacob. More lead sources, Derek. That's another one. We will be talking today a little bit about what lead sources Kevin is using at Brown Roofing. But keep these coming in, guys. Call out your top marketing challenges this year. And yeah, without further ado, I am going to get us started. I'm going to introduce myself. Then I'm going to introduce our speakers, and then we're just going to get right into it. So let me take it off of the slides. Camera, here we go. All right, so this webinar is about Brown Roofing's 86% set rate. And we're talking about more than just set rate. But my name is Kristen. I am the head of marketing at Hatch. For those of you who don't know what Hatch is, we are an AI-driven communication platform. Essentially, in a nutshell, we enable you to scale revenue-driving conversations across your funnel. I would say our biggest, our mission, what we strive for is increase revenue, decrease overhead costs, and in a way that is scalable so that you can so that strategy can grow with you. And I have two great speakers here with me today. I've got Michelle and Kevin. So Michelle, why don't you let us know who you are and where you're coming from?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks so much for having me today. My name is Michelle Middleman. I'm the Senior Marketing Manager here at AccuLynx, and I've been with AccuLynx for just about 8 years now. For those of you who are unfamiliar with AccuLynx, we were the first roofing business management software to market, founded all the way back in 2008. And our platform is designed to bring every aspect of your roofing company together, all the way from your initial lead through your final invoices and pretty much everything in between. And today we are proud to be the industry's leading business management software, and we serve thousands of roofing contractors across the US. And one of the reasons that we're here with you guys today is just last year, we released an enhancement to our system called App Connections, which is a simple way that contractors like you are able to connect AccuLynx with third-party roofing apps, all without coding. And one of those apps is our friends at Hatch. We're so excited. So basically, it allows Hatch users to use their AccuLynx data to run automated personalized messaging campaigns. And all of those replies are automatically logged in your AccuLynx job file, so you can respond to them right away. So again, thanks so much for having us.
Yeah, thanks for coming on, Michelle. You gave a lot there, so
I know it was really fast.
No, that's okay. It was all good stuff. We'll dive more into that. For those of you who may have questions on that, feel free to throw them in the chat, and we will be talking more about that. I'm also curious, for those of you on the call, if you are using AccuLynx or if you are interested in using AccuLynx. That's like a hat to AccuLynx. If you're using it or not, it's always good to know too. So thank you, Michelle.
Mhm.
And then Kevin, why don't you introduce yourself and tell us about your company?
Thanks, Kristen. Thank you for having me. My name's Kevin Luchin. I am the Director of Marketing at Brown Roofing in Seymour, Connecticut. We are one of the oldest roofing companies in Connecticut. This will be our 53rd year. We service the western half of the state, primarily Fairfield, New Haven, and Litchfield counties. I have been working with the company. Well, Brown Roofing is part of a larger nationwide network of roofers. And up until April of last year, I was working essentially for the network. The headquarters is literally right across the street. And back in April, I essentially just switched seats and came over to Brown Roofing full time. Eddie Griffin, our owner, is the second owner of Brown Roofing, but started working for Gary Brown when he was 13 years old. And back in 2012, he purchased the company from Gary. Although Gary was very successful, he was very old school. And Eddie has helped take us to about a $20 million a year company, looking to grow by about 20% this year.
That's awesome. Well, welcome both of you. Thank you for coming on here. I'm going to give you guys a quick rundown of our sort of agenda, but all of that is said with the invitation for you to put questions in the chat that you want to know. So we kind of have we've got some things that we can cover, but I want to open it up to you guys on the call. Anything you want to know, we can. I want you to help shape the conversation. So that being said, what I want to do is, I did a success story with Kevin and Michelle because Kevin uses Hatch and AccuLynx. So I want to kind of go over that. And then we're going to kind of go into some more of so I know one of the biggest outcomes that Kevin had was this 86% conversion rate, actually higher, but because his year-to-date conversion rate is 86, and it was lower but we'll get into that. And then just some other achievements that Kevin shared with me in our call, with regard to not just increasing conversion rate, but expanding. He's looking to expand even more this year, and also being able to tap into existing into his existing database to remarket to customers and cross promote. That's just another great way for anybody to get more. Are the views changing for you guys?
Yeah, our videos are switching back and forth.
Okay, it must be on like speaker view now. It just distracted me. Anyway, what I was saying was higher lifetime value, customer lifetime value. So anyway, without further ado, I'm gonna kind of get into it. So it is now just focused on my face. Let's see if we can change it back to gallery view. What are you guys seeing? Are you seeing just my face, like big Kristen face? Oh geez. Well, it might just be me being the star of the show. What are you guys on the call seeing other than Michelle and Kevin? Well, we'll figure it out. Okay. Yeah. So Robin says she sees me and then everybody else off to the side. Andrew, if you're on the call, Andrew is our backstage tech person. I don't know if you can help us out here, but it looks like it's kind of stuck on my face. Well, okay. Well, the show must go on. So Kevin, why don't let's lay out the foundation first. Tell us, you've kind of already touched on it, but how big is your business? What is your org structure? Think in terms of like your sales and marketing and appointment center, how do those work together? And then that way people can kind of have an idea of where you're coming from.
Okay, great. So, we essentially think of our organizational structure as gears of a business. So we have our sales gear, production gear, marketing gear, IT, accounts payable, that whole kind of thing. And we're not so large where we all don't work very closely together. I work very closely with our appointment center manager, Tammy. They're kind of right outside my door. And in a company this size, although $20 million may seem like a lot, roofing companies have an awful lot of overhead, right? So that's 20 in revenue, certainly not profit. So we all wear a lot of hats. My primary focus is I sit in a little box 12 hours a day trying to think of new ways to get my sales guys in front of people, right? They can't sell if they don't have anybody to talk to. So, so going back a little ways, like I said, I was working. Brown Roofing is part of Contractor Nation, which is a nationwide network of networks. One of the networks within Contractor Nation is Klaus Roofing Systems, which we are a partner in and one of the dealers. So back in 2021, I started working with Eddie as part of Contractor Nation. So I was working with a number of different types of contractors. One of those dealers within the basement waterproofing network had implemented Hatch at their dealer in Cincinnati, Ohio. So I was kind of the liaison between Contractor Nation and this basement waterproofing company in Cincinnati. She told me about it. We were having, well, she was having an awful lot of success with it. And at the time, I brought it over to Brown Roofing and said, hey, I think we ought to give this a shot. Our conversion rate was fairly low. People were not getting back on the phone with us in the implementation. So that the whole speed to lead thing within Hatch was our primary goal. And then it kind of expanded from there when we saw what capabilities Hatch had. So back in April of this year, again, I moved desks and came over full time, and we hired Tammy, the appointment center manager, shortly thereafter, and we were able to work together to not only get the speed to lead up and running and have people expecting us to call them back. We were able to implement other programs to help the sales guys follow up and cross-sell to our existing customer base.
Yep. Great. And just to lay out the framework, if I remember correctly, you're kind of mainly the marketing function, and then Tammy does the appointment center. So if somebody calls in or if a lead comes in, Tammy takes care. And I think this is where AccuLynx comes in, where, she gets their information, she puts it into AccuLynx, and then that organizes the appointment setting process. And then you have your sales function, which they're not really using Hatch, right? Like
the sales folks, are not really using Hatch. However, since our last conversation, which was only a couple of weeks back, we have within the appointment center, we've designated one of our reps as a hunter, right?
Got it.
So she is now following up on those leads that either the sales folks let die or just kind of dismissed or went radio silent on us. So and through, we've been able to at least keep Brown Roofing in front of those people through our nurture and follow-up campaigns.
Yep. And Michelle, I'm sure you can speak to this. Those, with the way that Hatch works, the speed to lead happens with integration with your lead sources, and then anything after that, the integration comes into play. So I'm assuming that's going to mean on your side, Kevin, your team making sure you're dispositioning the statuses correctly. And then Michelle, from your experience, would you say there's a common theme? Like when you do recommend Hatch to somebody, are your roofing clients, are they primarily concerned with speed to lead, or are they also looking for ways to reach back out, or is it a mix of both?
I'd say it's a mix of both. And Kevin can, speak to how his company does this, but when you're putting leads into AccuLynx, you're usually designating a lead source, or that's automatically applied to that lead. So then when they're using Hatch to send automated campaigns and those replies come back, those replies are automatically in the job file. So whoever's managing that job file gets notified, they can respond right away, they can follow up, and there's no downtime. There's no leads that get lost in the shuffle of everything else. So I think that's primarily what the benefit is really for contractors who are using both.
Yeah.
I mean, what's great is the integration between Hatch and AccuLynx has been absolutely seamless. So whether our appointment center reps are in AccuLynx or Hatch, they're seeing the same information.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know that's key because, we are not a CRM, right? We partner with CRMs, and CRMs are really great at housing data, AccuLynx, for example, but Hatch allows you to kind of action that data, and then that two-way sync allows your CRM to still be that single source of truth. Because, like, I know Kevin, like Tammy, she's in AccuLynx most of the day, but like you said, the view is the same whether it's in Hatch or AccuLynx.
Right.
Yeah, great. So let's talk a little bit about, your speed to lead strategy. First of all, I want to just talk a little bit. I know somebody was looking about adding more lead sources. Kevin, do you want to just touch a little bit on you mentioned like 26 plus lead sources. You don't have to list them all, but can you tell us a little bit about
that's grown too. Right now I have 37.
Okay.
So, I'm blessed in the fact that I have an owner who understands marketing to the point where when things are slow, he knows you have to step on the gas and not pull back. So one of the, tenets we live by as far as branding goes is to make your owner locally famous. So one of my aims is whatever territory we're expanding into, I want everybody to recognize Eddie. I want everybody to recognize our logo, and I want everybody to recognize our tagline. So that means being in as many places as possible for people to see it or hear it, whether it's TV, radio, the bus behind me.
Yep, there he is, right on the bus.
Yeah. So, and we found that those are garner much more attention than a billboard. So people just aren't expecting this big red bus to be rolling down the street with somebody's bald head on it. So it gets us a lot of attention. But we do TV, radio, we do all the traditional digital marketing, from pay-per-click to display ads. Some of the lead aggregators, the Contractor Nation, who also owns a digital marketing firm, kind of weeds through those leads from the lead aggregators for us. So we're not wasting our time and money on, what's the word I'm looking for? Crap from places like Angie's List and Home Advisor and things like that. I don't have the bandwidth to sit there requesting refunds or have my sales guys banging on my door telling me these leads stink, nor the appointment center coming into my office saying they said they didn't fill out anything. So we've been able to weed a lot of that out. Also traditional direct mail. We also do a lot of local sponsorships, whether it's a Little League team, a festival. We're heavily involved in giving back to the community through some charities. Although we are not a 501c3, we do have kind of a charity of our own where we give away 2 roofs a year to one. Typically the qualifications is a family in need that is given back to their community. And this year, for the first time, we are going to be doing a roof for a veteran in need. So it's all those things combined. And I would say that better than 50% of my budget is not lead generation. it's branding.
Okay.
The important thing there, though, is for us to, going into 2025, I know how many raw leads I need coming through the door. I need to know how many we need to convert, how many we need to actually sit, and what our closing ratio needs to be. And all of that combined, no matter if that lead came in from TV or if it came in from an organic search, I know what my allowable cost per lead is. As long as I can produce those leads at an allowable cost per lead, I'm good. The great thing about having a firm like Treehouse Marketing, which we are, is we can shift money around on a dime, right? All it takes is a phone call or for me to walk across the street saying, I've got to shift X percentage of this bucket over to this bucket, and it's done right away.
Yep.
So, we start out with a budget at the beginning of the year, and by the end of the first quarter, money's flying all over the place, right? I need to know where I'm getting the best bang for my buck.
Yep.
Obviously, we also run referral programs, whether it's for our current customers, property managers, home inspectors, real estate agents. We just had 35 home inspectors in here last night doing a continuing education program. And all of our sales guys were here cultivating those relationships. So if you've got 2 home inspectors in your hip pocket and they're referring you out to even 10 customers a month and you close 3 of them, well, that's just one step closer to our revenue goal.
Yeah. Yeah. So to recap, you've got a lot of different lead sources from a lot of different areas, and it's not necessarily just lead source. In some cases, it's just impressions. And I mean, I love the idea of having, Brown Roofing on a bus. Like, I see an ad on a bus and I'm like, oh, that, like, it feels so professional. And like, I would never expect to see like a home service company on a bus. So I see that, I'd be like, wow, they're pretty big. It's not like a fake it till you make it. Cause like, obviously you're a great business, but for somebody like that brand awareness, for somebody that doesn't know anything, maybe they're new to the community, like that's going to stick in their head.
Yeah. So last year we were in, it's harder to garner the attention in some of the more affluent communities. So we want the brand in front of as many people as possible. And we were actually doing grocery store dividers at the checkout.
Oh,
yep.
And, I could not, somebody talked about attribution earlier. I couldn't attribute a single lead to those grocery store dividers. And by the way, everything we do has a call tracking number and a call tracking a tracking URL, so we know where it's coming from. So, and I said to Eddie, I think we're going to pull out of the grocery stores, and he goes, and it's not expensive at all, by the way. But Eddie said to me, he goes, no, I want them to see me and go, there he is again.
Yep.
So, like I said, I'm blessed in the fact that I have an owner that gets it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. Michelle, I'm sure you can agree. There are some things that you're doing from your end, even marketing and for AccuLynx, where like you can't necessarily attribute a direct conversion. Like maybe you're running a display ad or something. I have the same thing. Like there are certain things that I'm doing, but it's like kind of like this halo effect where the more awareness, you do start to see activity in other areas.
For sure. I mean, like what Kevin was saying, even just having your brand out there, the logo, the face, putting a face to a name is so important. I mean, AccuLynx attends over 30 events every year, and we do that obviously to meet with roofing contractors, to meet with our customers, but also just to show people that we're there and that we're here. We pass out hats and shirts and other merchandise. We love to give that stuff away. We've got, our cool swag that we have all the time. The more people that we can have wearing AccuLynx stuff, who recognize our logo, who recognize just the name, like, oh, I've heard of that before. I mean, that goes a long way too. And like you were saying, there's not always something that you can attribute to it, but it's just being known in your industry, being known in your market. And that comes with time, it comes with exposure. But altogether, I'd say it does have a measurable impact on a business without being measurable, I suppose.
Yeah.
just piggyback on that. It also, especially with roofing companies, right? We're not as big as Hatch. We're not as big as AccuLynx. It also needs to come from the willingness of the people up here, right? Eddie has never told me no. And again, I'm blessed in that. You should have seen his face when I told him I was going to put him on a bus. But he's never said no to me, and he's willing to give anything a go. Yeah. And also what I've found is, especially with the offline vendors, there's always more than what they're offering. Always more for the same price, right? So and we're on 6 radio stations, and I just said, well, and we signed a fairly good sized deal for 2025. And I said, if you want me to sign it, it's got to come in at this price point, and you guys have to have Eddie on the radio at least once a month.
Yeah.
So, it's just another thing where they see his face, they hear his voice. And when you meet the guy, you can't help but love the guy,
Yeah. So that helps too.
Right. And and it's part of, again, making him famous. Like we make sure he's in pretty much every social media post that we do.
Yep.
I want people to know his face, and just getting back to the attribution, there's always a reconciliation at the end of the month, because we track everything. Doesn't necessarily mean that that's the way it's going into AccuLynx, right? So at the end of the month, we've got to go back. We've got to go through all the tracking data, and our GM, I believe, is working with AccuLynx now to get a secondary lead source code onto the record, right? Because somebody may have said, well, I saw your bus, but when the lead comes in, it was tagged as a PPC lead, because they saw the bus, they went home, they Googled us, clicked on the PPC ad. Now I've got to attribute it to both, right?
Right. Yeah, understanding a buyer's journey is always, I think, a challenge for most marketers, especially if there's multiple touch points before they actually convert. But I'm glad you brought up the report, just because I know that's something that, I look at a lot in AccuLynx, and that I think a lot of our customers use, is our marketing spend report. We've got that ability to look at all those lead sources, to attribute, your ROI to each of those based on whether it was a digital ad or a website form or anything else that you tag to it. You're able to see your conversion rates. And I think having that data in front of you as a marketer helps you make really good, smart decisions for your business. Like you were saying, Kevin, you maybe couldn't attribute a lot of revenue to the grocery store signs, but I'm sure you can see other areas where you can point to this one thing or one source and say, look, like my digital ads are converting at a 40% rate, and that's where we need to be spending more of our dollars. And I think having that data at your fingertips as a marketer makes you more powerful.
Right. So someone just asked in the chat, curious to know, if you can attribute metrics to a certain branding effort, how do you determine what branding efforts are actually worth your time and effort? It kind of goes back to just what we were talking about, right? They Google us, they pick up the phone, they give us a call, we say, where'd you hear about us? They say, oh, I saw you at the Norwalk Oyster Festival. But meanwhile, it's attached to the call tracking number of the direct mail piece they got, right? So they see us at the Oyster Festival, they go, Brown Roofing. They get home, go, I don't even have to Google it. I got this direct mail piece. I can dial that number. Yeah. So it with a lot of the offline stuff, with the online stuff, it's pretty easy. Right. When it's directly, when it's a direct search or something like that. When it comes to the offline stuff, your appointment center or whoever's picking up the phone have to be asking the question, where did you hear about us? And we hear all the time, the bus, the radio, this sponsorship, that sponsorship.
Yep. Yeah, we have the same problem. We're a software company, but we'll see that we have like at one point we were running paid search ads, and we had 5 70 or 80% of our closes were coming from paid search, but it's not because they found us on paid search. It's because they heard about us on a webinar or somewhere else, and then they Googled us and our ad came up first. And now that we've taken ads away, it's showing up on organic. And so we have in our, we don't have the same model where it's an appointment center, but we, in our form, when they fill out a demo form, we ask how you heard about us. And so we look at the original source, and then we look at the self-attributed source. So to Kevin's point, like, you kind of have to build that into your system, whether it's automated or making sure it's part of the process. Asking people how they heard about you is really important.
Right. I mean, I remember back in the earlier days of digital marketing, it was, do I do paid search or do I do display ads? And everybody wanted to do one or the other. When in reality, to get it to work best, you have to do both. Absolutely. When I was across the street at Contractor Nation, we would run reports all the time of leads that came in from somebody who was just doing direct, PPC or display ads up against those who were doing both. And those who were doing both, it was constantly like this.
Yeah, exactly.
So.
Yep. And same thing for us, like when we do Facebook and paid search, like sometimes it was an inverse where like the more we saw on Facebook, the less we'd see on Google, and then vice versa. But it was because people were seeing us on Facebook and then going to Google later on. It was that secondary effect. So yeah, it's oftentimes multiple channels in concert with one another.
Yep.
There's some questions in here. Were you going to address them, Kevin?
Yeah, I was going to ask you. There are a lot of questions coming in, and if you want me to address them, I certainly can. Christina asked, "Is this the phone numbers from Hatch?" No, these are our numbers that we procure through our digital marketing firm, which allows us access to their kind of dashboard, which tracks everything from any call tracking number and call URL. What has been your experience with PPC ads this past year? We have always had very good success with PPC. I think, and this is just my opinion is that when PPC does not work, it's like life insurance. If you can afford it, you don't have enough. We have a very healthy PPC budget. So that's number one. Number two, we're always in contact with the Treehouse. And when I say the Treehouse, that's the digital marketing firm we use, as to where do they see intent. I had a discussion with my account manager the other day that searches for siding and chimneys are triple already this month what they were in December. So that tells me there's high intent within chimney and siding. We need to shift some money over there. So we're able to do that. But typically, if your PPC is underperforming, you're probably not doing enough, or it could be it's not being managed properly. I don't have, for our paid search, I don't have to look at anything but the numbers on a bi-weekly basis, because all the nuts and bolts work is being done by the Treehouse.
Yeah.
And I can go back to them and say, hey, based on the 20 leads we got this week from PPC, 7 of them were bad. Can we look at the ad copy? Are the extensions wrong? And they all came in from the same ad. I need to know what's going on.
Yep.
And they're willing to do that. So it's a combination of what's your spend and how closely is it being monitored.
Yeah. If you're, I used to work at an ad agency, or it wasn't necessarily an ad agency. It was a platform that helped you manage your PPC, but that's always a common issue. Like, you've got to make sure you're spending enough, because if you don't have enough volume coming in, you're not going to have enough data that's going to inform your strategy. And then you may just have to ramp up spend in the beginning, and then you can level off a little bit, but you've got to have enough data.
Yep.
there's a question in here Stephanie, it's a great segue. So she wants to know what best practices we have Kevin's using to manage cross-selling campaigns in Hatch. And before we get to that, I just want to say two things. One is, for those of you, this is open to both Hatch customers and people that are just curious about Hatch. We are starting a weekly office hours series. It's starting next week. Keep your eye out for an email on that. It's going to just be like, they're going to be Hatch in our style. So these can be very specific to your Hatch strategy. We'll have either an account manager or an onboarding specialist. Somebody will always be on that call, and then we can do screen share. So it's designed to be very interactive. So Stephanie, I encourage you also to check those out, because you can also interact with one another. Yep. That does not mean that we won't cover that here. The other thing that I want to share is, for those of you who are not familiar with kind of the overall picture of how Hatch works, I'm going to lay that out for you. And then that way Kevin can answer the questions, and Michelle can even answer questions about these campaigns. But essentially, Hatch allows you to automate your outreach across the customer journey. So we have some core campaigns, that's speed to lead, estimate follow-up. And then, so, as soon as a lead comes in, whether it's through your website or it's through Angie, Hatch will fire off a campaign. It's a multi-touch, multi-step, like a drip campaign that gets the customer to respond. When they respond, you will have somebody that will get notified on your team, and you can jump in and then engage. Yep. Also, if you have Hatch AI, and a bot will jump in and kind of go through all the initial pre-qualification and then pass off to a human when needed. So that's speed to lead. And then there's estimate follow-up. That's, if they didn't close in the home, usually a couple days after the estimate, a campaign will go out. And then there's nurture. And this is what Kevin will get into. This is kind of just, there's a lot of different ways to do nurture. We kind of just group it into one bucket, but you can reach out to leads that never booked an appointment. You can reach out to estimates that never closed. You can reach out to customers that have been with you in the past. And so that's where we're arriving at here, where Stephanie wants to know some best practices there on cross-selling campaigns. So Kevin, I'll let you take it away from there.
Yep. So number one, I know Stephanie. So Stephanie is actually the marketing manager at our sister company here in Connecticut.
Oh, great.
So yeah. So, hey, Steph, good to see you here. So the best practices for the cross-selling, it's probably the simplest campaign we run. And these are the cross-selling is obviously to existing customers. So I want to say it's once a quarter that they are getting a message, an email and a text, just saying, hey, we're here. If we replace their roof, then the message is going to be, remember, we do gutters, chimney repair, and siding. If we did their gutters, hey, remember, we do roofs, chimney, and siding. Very, very simple campaigns to just keep our name in front of them. And the great thing is too, is if they opt out, they opt out. We're doing enough branding where they're still going to see us, and if they view us as a pain in the neck, well, they're still going to remember me.
Yep.
Right.
Are you using for those, Kevin, are you keeping it really simple with like just one or two touches, or do you have like it going out over the course of a couple of days if they don't respond?
As far as the cross-selling campaign to current customers, I believe that's just going out once a quarter.
Yeah.
But it has been very successful in generating revenue.
Yeah. But I mean, like, because it sounds like, because it's a very simple message, right? When it's speed to lead, you want to reach out right away, and you want to like touch them at least, like, if they don't respond the first day, reach out again and again and again. So are you doing that? Do you know if you're doing that with this cross-selling campaign, or is it just like a day one campaign and then done?
I would have to check with Tammy. I know it started off as kind of a one and done, and we'll reach out to you in 90 days kind of thing. To remind you if we haven't heard from you. But that being said, if we do hear from them, it's very easy to pull them out of that campaign. So now we've done their roof and their gutters, right? Yep. So in 90 or 120 days, they get something specific to siding and chimneys.
Yep.
Right. So we have a number of different messages that are going out. It all depends on what bucket you fall into.
Yep. Yep. Great answer. And Michelle, can you tell me a little bit about like what is the dispositioning like for that in AccuLynx? Like,
Well, that's what I was gonna. Yeah. So, Kevin, I'm assuming that you're pulling some of these, qualifiers directly from AccuLynx. So the
Absolutely.
benefit of this integration specifically is that AccuLynx is sharing all this job data with Hatch, things like names, addresses, emails, phone numbers, project statuses, and all this is in real time. So I believe it updates every 15 minutes in Hatch. So depending on when you're sending these campaigns, you know that you're going to have or you're going to reach the most relevant audience, right? So it's going to be people that, like you said, have had a roof and gutters done, or maybe, they're still in the process. So you can tailor these campaigns based on the data that you have in AccuLynx very to a niche segment, which then you're able to really personalize those messages. You're able to make sure that you're sending, really specific messaging and the criteria that you want. So I think that's, really the biggest benefit is like what's in AccuLynx is being used to inform these campaigns. So they are the most accurate. You are reaching the right people. Your message is more likely to land.
Yeah. Yeah. And one other thing too, in terms of the speed to lead, I found this kind of interesting, Kevin, is so that was nurture or cross promotion. Going back to speed to lead, you guys have a little bit of a different, so not different. When a lead comes in, the initial message that goes out is not necessarily like, hey, thanks for reaching out. Like, do you want to set up an appointment? It's more like, hey, thanks for reaching out. We're going to have somebody call you. Is that right?
Yeah. So, that it's, and really that comes down from Eddie, right?
Yeah.
He wants it to feel personal.
Yeah.
There have been times where people have said, nope, just contact me via text. And we certainly do that. Yeah. But we want to have that human touch in there as well, because we are a very customer focused, family focused type of operation. Yeah. So, it's my opinion, even with all this AI stuff coming around, we kind of want to be that company that says you're going to get a real person.
Yeah.
So yeah, not that I don't see the benefits of AI, but Eddie preaches all the time. We are protecting a family's most valuable asset, and to do that, there needs to be some human contact. So, not that we won't use AI down the road for who knows whatever, but we want them to know that there's somebody, a real person at the other end of the phone who cares.
Yeah. No, I was going to say, we've got one of our customers, Point Loma, they use Hatch AI, and because they have the Service Titan integration, I can actually go all the way through and book an appointment on the calendar. So that they do that, and that happens especially like on a Sunday. But when they are in the office, they only let the bot take it up to the point where there is booking, so that the bot like collects all the information of when the customer is available, and then always a human steps in to finish the deal, because they want a human interacting with that customer.
Yeah, and it's really going to vary from roofing company to roofing company. We're just taking the tact we're taking for right now, and who knows, that can change.
Yeah, absolutely. Another question for you, Kevin, is: are you aware of our voice, our calling step to campaigns?
I am not.
Well, let me tell you real quick. We are coming, because I'm excited about it. I've been following this kind of story, but we are adding calling to campaigns, and this is actually coming out the first week of February. So that means that when you can add a step, when you create a campaign, how you can pick like, oh, I want this text to go out. You can now create a call step, so that let's say you want them to call first, you can put in the call, and then it'll put in a notification. It'll surface a notification for the person to call. And then based on the outcome of the call, you can make the call in Hatch, and then based on the outcome of the call, it can then put them into the proper sequence. Because obviously if they pick up the phone, you don't want to keep sending messages.
Right.
So yeah, if I was just thinking of that, because I know you guys like to do calling. So that's something to keep an eye out.
We can certainly talk about that.
Yeah. Cool. I will send you, and I'll put this in the chat too. We have a preview of that. We did a webinar on that a couple weeks ago, just previewing what that would look like. And then, yes, we are coming out with voice AI that will be able to. The first step of that will be to answer inbound calls, but human voice, that call step, it's going to be pretty basic to start off, and then we're going to be adding in like the ability to do transcriptions and other, bells and whistles with that. So that's just an update for you. And then for anybody else on this call, let's see, we've got some more questions here. Christina wants to know, Kevin, are you primarily retail or do you offer insurance?
We are primarily retail. For lack of a better term, insurance companies are always a fight. And when you win, it takes forever for them to pay. So we are primarily retail. It does not mean that we will not engage with insurance companies, particularly if there's a storm. But more, and we're not going to turn it down either if somebody comes to us with an insurance claim, but it's not something we actively pursue and market.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like an entire week's program that you have to devote your sales folks to get certified on Xactimate. And for us, we're doing okay without it.
Sounds good. So no reason to rock the boat. I've got one more thing, Kevin. I've found this to be pretty common now among our customers so we've talked about speed to lead, we talked about nurture, estimate follow-up. Talk to me about how that has kind of changed. Like basically it sounded like if the sales guys don't follow up within a certain time frame, then the Hatch automation goes out, right? Mm-hmm. So sounds like has been more of like an accountability tool for sales as well.
100%. It has helped our sales folks re-engage, right? So they have X amount of days to disposition an account. And if they don't, it comes back in-house. Mm-hmm. So it has made them more accountable to the follow-up. However, if it does come back in-house and we do close the deal, they're compensated differently. So, it helps keep them engaged to follow up. And then if there is something that is truly dead and 90 days down the road, it closes from in-house, they're still getting something when they thought they had nothing.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So, and I only say this because I'm a former sales guy for a long time. Sales guys are horrible at following up, right? We want to get in, we want to get out, and we want to move on to the next one. If it doesn't close the first time, the first sit, then they're not worth my time. I mean, that's the mentality of a good portion of sales folks out there. And ultimately, you're losing out. So with this hunter role, and with the follow-up on the estimates through a Hatch campaign, we've been able to capture some of that back. Now, some of those folks go radio silent for any number of reasons, right? They're just not going to go with you. The price is too high. They want different materials, etc. So you're never going to get them anyway. But it has certainly helped make our sales folks more accountable and better at follow-up.
Yeah. And I think that speaks to some people are hesitant. They don't want like an automation following up on something like an estimate, but it's actually, no, you're giving your team time to do it. And then if it doesn't get done, at least that campaign is going out. And then of course, like it's just outreach. It's just
Right.
outreach. It's enough to get them to respond, and then a person can jump in and engage.
I was going to ask Kevin, are you marking those in AccuLynx for like your closed reasons? Like you're saying like, oh, it was too expensive or something like that, because you can use
we need to
run
do
more campaigns. Like
we need to do a better job of that.
Just another idea of a way. So you get, 10 leads that say, oh, you were too expensive.
Yep.
That's a campaign you run a few months later saying, well, we've got a deal on gutters right now or something like that. So again, just more ways, the more data you build into AccuLynx, the more informed your hatch campaigns will be. So
yep, exactly. There have been a few questions about the FCC, and I want to encourage those of you who are asking. We did a webinar on the FCC regulations. That's probably the best place to start. If you already did view that, then I'm sorry if I'm already telling you something that you already know. But we answered a lot of questions there. So, and for those of you who aren't fully aware, there is a change on January 27th involving a one-to-one consent. I want to get to, there was a question in here. Nick wants to know, Kevin, from a company looking to build its retail marketing, what value props or CTAs do you find resonate well?
Well, how do I phrase this? We are not the cheapest game in town by far. So we are always selling on value. So that value comes from, it's funny, I just got an email from the Treehouse about the new regulations.
They're listening.
Yeah. So we are constantly selling on value, whether it's the products we use, the fact that we have a project manager on every site that's going to walk you through the entire process and be there from the time the trucks show up until the yard's cleaned up. And from there, we have to sell them on financing. Sometimes and those are the value props that are really more sales focused than they are marketing focused. That sales guy needs to say, it's not a $22,000 a roof for the roof. It's $269 a month for the roof, right? So I think the value props come more in the sales process than they do in the marketing process. In the marketing process, our messages are, we do the coupons and that kind of thing, but it's really selling the company's mission, vision, and values. And if your company has not set forth a mission, vision, and values, it is probably one of the things that will set you apart in your market. You've got a million guys out there chucking a truck who show up with a clipboard and are working out of their garage, and there's nothing wrong with that. But when you show up and talk to a customer, they see some type of ad that says, here, we state our vision, mission, and values right on the homepage of our website. So it's one of the first things you'll see. I don't think you see that on many roofers' websites. And as far as the FCC regulations go, typically my marketing firm or my digital marketing firm takes care of all of that. So this email that I got from them is the first time I even know about it. So I can't speak to any of it.
Kevin, I like what you said about the branding. It kind of, the idea that I think of is like operating from the inside out, right? Like when you put forth who you are, because people aren't necessarily just like browsing around looking for roofs, right? It's not like like when you need a roof, you need a roof. So, and this, like you said, it's like the most important thing for a family is a roof over your head. So you're kind of putting it out there. It's like an inbound marketing model where you're just like, we are here. We have made an effort to be consistent in our branding. And like when you, it's the same thing as like, if you have a well-kept lawn, somebody drives by, they're like, wow, that person cares about their house. They take care to do these things. So I think you're right in that the marketing, the CTA is kind of just like making it an inviting thing. And then down the line, handling those objections is really key.
And that's the thing, though. When you do have a mission, vision, and values, it can't just be words on a piece of paper. You have to live it. I know that all of our appointment center reps, they understand when that phone rings, that customer is not calling us because they're having a good day, right? Very few times do we get a phone call that says, hey, I woke up this morning and I want a new roof on my house. There's a reason they want a new roof on their house. Yep. So, and that's part of the vision, mission, and values, and making the customer experience a good experience.
Yep. And that's another theme too that people have shared in their success stories. Because, I do a lot of success story interviews, and they'll say that there are competitors out there and their value proposition is that they are cheaper. And that's fine. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. But when you can actually create a good customer experience, and this is where Hatch comes in, like, you can reach out to them as soon as they come in, and then you can stay with them throughout the customer journey. You're creating a quality experience there. And that kind of takes care of itself, because you then have that customer, you keep that customer. So when it's time to invest and get to the next stage of growth, you actually have a pretty solid base there. And it makes it, like Kevin, you said your prices, you're not the cheapest ones around, but people pay to feel comfortable. They pay to feel safe. They pay to feel that they can trust whoever they're welcoming into their home.
Yeah. I think one of the value propositions that we push all the time is our warranty, right? We offer a 50-year warranty on our roofs if you use the materials that we use. And so our sales guys are telling them, this says Brown Roofing 50-year warranty. It's not a manufacturer's warranty. It should say Eddie Griffin warranty. Because if somebody calls into our company and it's a roof that we did and they said we have a leak, we just say, we'll come fix it. That's it. I mean, it doesn't go any further than that, and there's no fighting over whose fault it is. Now, if we get out there and we find out it's not a leak and it's condensation in the attic, then we'll have that conversation then. But this is a Brown Roofing Eddie Griffin warranty. It is not an ICO shingle warranty. It's not an underlayment warranty. This is us.
Yeah, that's great. Before I forget, I am going to launch a poll here, and there's definitely some questions on here that we didn't get to entirely. So I'm thinking and talking at the same time. I'm going to start this poll. If you are a Hatch customer or an AccuLynx customer, and you just want to get in touch with us, and if you have questions about optimizing your account, you can hit A or B. If you want both to reach out to you, hit C. If you are not a Hatch customer, if you are not an AccuLynx customer, same thing applies. If you're interested in learning more and you want somebody to reach out to you to get a personalized demo, you can hit that button, and we will have somebody reach out to you accordingly. So I'll leave that poll up. The other thing, I just want to make one more plug for next week's Hatchinar, we're calling it. This is going to be the weekly office hours. So we will be sending an email out. We'll also send out, reminders in some other places where you can see it and it can remind you. But anybody is welcome. You come on. The idea is just for knowledge sharing. You will have the opportunity, if you want to, chat in, not just through a chat, but if you want to actually speak, if it's easier to explain, something that you're wanting to know. If you want to get on camera, you can do that. You don't have to. You can stay in the background too. And like I said, it's for people who have questions about optimizing their account. It's for customers to be able to interact with each other and share ideas. And it's for people who are curious about Hatch. You're welcome to come in and listen in and just see how the platform works. There were a few other questions here. I didn't see them. They got moved to the Q&A. I think either you or Michelle, Kevin, did that, which I appreciate.
Oh, I didn't, but I did have something that I wanted to add off of Kevin's whole conversation about, not being the cheapest game in town, but providing
Yeah,
real value. Obviously AccuLynx is a CRM or a software, but speaking to that same sort of feeling is, what AccuLynx strives to do is provide roofing contractors with the tools to be that kind of company. So the kind of company that has that personal outreach, that is able to look back in their archives and say, yes, we offered them a warranty. We have it right here. Here's all of the photos. Here's all of the documentation. None of that goes away. It's all stored in the cloud within your files. And then even during projects, we have a customer portal that you're able to set up for these homeowners, so they have full transparency with your sales teams. They can see all the photos that they took on site. They can access all of their financing documentation, their contracts. They have an immediate contact of someone they can call if they have questions. So all of those features and plenty more within AccuLynx that, we're not the focus of the webinar today, but all of those were built into the system to give roofing contractors a way to be that value add for their homeowners. So just wanted to plug that in there really quick.
No, we appreciate that, Michelle. And it is the focus of the webinar. I mean, we've got somebody that's using both Hatch and AccuLynx, so it's always good information to have. Do you guys have do you have a hard stop at 3, or can we answer the
I don't. I'm good.
More questions? Go for it.
All right, yeah, let's see if we can answer these final questions. So Sean wants to know, how do you prevent no-shows, and what is your no-show and cancellation rate?
I would say our no-show and cancellation rate is probably 10%. It's actually fairly low. Number one, through Hatch, we are sending out a notification prior to the appointment a couple days before. Number two, our sales reps are required to do a 24-hour call. So that's probably the best way. Those that do no-show are typically not buyers. Typically they don't reschedule, or oftentimes it could be somebody got there before us and they just signed the contract.
Yep.
So it's part of doing business. You're going to have no-shows. If I had a nickel for every person that no-showed me when I was in sales, I'd be retired.
Yep. Yep,
so.
Exactly. And Sean, I don't know if if you're using Hatch or not, but I do know that another method. So Kevin talked about appointment confirmations. Another method that some of our customers do is, once somebody books an appointment, again, that gets dispositioned in your CRM, and then you can do another campaign that's like, thanks for booking with us, and then give them a few things on what to expect. And some people like to do a little price conditioning there. Because if a person then says, please don't come out because the prices are too high, then they weren't worth your time anyway. So that's another way you can kind of like qualify them.
We also send out a fairly robust pre-mailer packet with information about the company, the products, information about our insurance, license, a bio on the owner, and a bio on the sales rep who is coming out to see you.
Yep. Yeah. And back to your point too, Kevin, you said, some people, your competitors beat you to it. And so that's why it all comes down to that speed. It's not just speed to lead and responding to them right away when they become a lead, but getting that process going as fast as possible, because it's competitive.
Yeah. And sometimes it's unavoidable too, because there are times in the height of roofing season, our appointments are booked out sometimes 3 weeks.
Right. Yep.
So.
Yeah. All right. Last question here is from Nick. And he said, with roughly 50% of the budget being brand awareness, what is your attribution percentage? What's the best way you have found to track mass media campaigns?
Really through the call tracking in the URL, the tracking URLs, that's the best way. That's number one. Number two is having your appointment center asking the right questions. Where did you hear about us? So it's really those two things. And we are, I totally lost my train of thought. Well, we are working right now on better attribution of the leads. I would say beyond expanding into markets within our territory where we're not as well known. That's probably my number 2 concern for this year. And that's all the funky data, mind-numbing stuff that I hate. But got to do
Yep.
it.
Yep. And that is one thing that we didn't get to, was talking about expansion next time.
Yep.
And for those of you who may not be clear, for these tracking numbers, correct me if I'm wrong, Kevin, but it will generate, so like the number that you have on the bus is going to be different from the number that you have at the grocery store. It all goes to the same line, but then
Right.
you know what number that they called, and then you can understand which ad they saw.
Yeah, I mean, we want to get it to the point where we know when the call comes in and not having to reconcile at the end of the month.
Yep.
And that's something we're working on. But the way the Treehouse has set up their dashboard, it's fairly easy to do.
Yep. All right, cool.
I saw a couple other questions I can answer real quick if you don't mind.
Oh, not at all.
Steph, no, we don't personalize the messages with the salesperson's name. I come in, that's all coming from one person here in the office, and that's our hunter. And somebody asked about SEO. Oh, what do you do to boost your SEO efforts? We are constantly updating our site with new content, whether it's blogs, before and after photos, videos, job stories, photo galleries, case studies we kind of save for, those kind of oddball projects or historical projects are always good for a case study because it's very local. So yeah, and our folks do a pretty good job of collecting the content in the field. We finally have a new marketing coordinator who is going to spend time out there getting photos and videos and drone footage for us. And we now have a marketing intern who's putting together a lot of that content specifically for the website.
Yeah, I was going to take a look at your website. I'm assuming it's hitting all the bases, but I used to in my former roles, I did a lot of local SEO and regular, SEO. And Kevin, he's on point there. Like, you've got to constantly be updating your website. Google is just the algorithm just gets more and more advanced, and it's not just about like how much content you have, it is how new your content is. So
yep.
even if your blog posts aren't ranking, they're not going to like rank number 1, but you're putting fresh content out there. You are constantly kind of pinging the algorithm. And the other thing too is just keeping it very locally focused. So if Kevin's team puts a post out there that's about something, a very, like he said, a very specific like landmark, or if you optimize your website pages with your location name and specific things about that location, they are actually highly likely to rank. Even if it's like, roofing tips for that particular area, like you can show up in that way too.
Yeah.
One of the cool things that the Treehouse does for us is they have a technology where, based on your IP address, if you're doing your search and you land on the Brown Roofing website and you are 60 miles away from me, the content that you see is going from the town closest to your IP address, right?
Yep.
So we're trying to give them that local content. We also have things we call city pages, which are entirely devoted to your town. What we want to try and do is to get those city pages to outrank our homepage.
Exactly.
Because if I get somebody to a city page, they convert at about 25%.
Yeah.
And that's insane.
Yeah.
So it's, we always talk about when somebody comes to your website, they want to know, do you do the work? Do you do the work in my area? Can I see the work? And what are your customers saying about you? And I have to hit 6 different pages on the website in order to find all that stuff out, unless I get you to the city page.
Yep.
And it's all right there.
Yep, exactly. And then listings is just a huge one. Like, your Google My Business profile. Google doesn't just look at your Google Maps profile. Google looks at all of your listings across the web, and it also looks at how consistent those listings are. So like having a process where you're kind of auditing and making sure that that information is as consistent as possible across platforms is really key. Especially because there are plenty of platforms too. I'm sure you guys have all experienced this where you're like listed on a directory that you didn't put yourself on. And that's because all these directories are kind of auto pulling from each other. So if you can control what you can control and be meticulous about it, especially your Google My Business profile, that will kind of control what proliferates from there.
I would add social media to that as well. Just making sure that you've got a very clean, professional Facebook page. If you're into Instagram or X or LinkedIn, just making sure that everything is consistent across all of your different channels, that, a contact information is easy to find. I found, I've Googled businesses before where I'm like, how do I call this business? Their number's not right there. Just thinking about from the user experience, like what's going to have the least amount of friction, right? So whether they're finding you on Facebook or they're Googling your page, making sure that everything is there.
Yeah. I mean, Facebook is a directory. I think it's the second largest business directory after Google Maps. So.
Right. So, and another great place to add photos of case studies and other satisfied customers and interact with people too. I know that, reading Facebook groups or responses to things on our feed is really important. Like you don't want to look like you're neglecting people where they're coming to you.
Yep. Exactly.
Yep. And don't forget YouTube.
YouTube, all of them.
Yep. Totally. Well, this has been so informative. Michelle and Kevin, thank you both for coming out here. And thank you to everybody that showed up and all the questions that you asked. It always makes it so much more fun when you guys are engaging and we know we're kind of providing value. Mm-hmm. Keep an eye out for you'll get an email within the hour with like the replay, just like the recap, just the replay. And then we'll send out a recap tomorrow, like a written recap, probably with a few clips too. And then keep an eye out for the Hatchinar. And then we've got we'll definitely have another webinar happening next week. We're basically doing them weekly now. So, anything else that you or Kevin or Michelle want to add?
Just that I was happy to be here today and happy to provide people with information. And again, if you're interested in learning more about AccuLynx as a CRM for your roofing business, I'd be more than happy to provide you with resources and get you in touch with the right people on our team. I'm on the marketing team, but I've got people that can answer all of your nitty-gritty, very specific roofing business questions very well. And hopefully Kevin will give us a shout out too. So
and nothing much more to offer other than thank you for having me. It was a pleasure. There was one question we didn't answer, and it was just that do we do repairs or only full roof replacements? We do repairs as well, but often a repair is indicative of something much larger going wrong with the roof. So we kind of leave that to the sales guys to make the right assessment. Typically our roofing inspections are 90 to 120 minutes. So it's pretty thorough. But it's incumbent on them to turn a repair into a full replacement if that's what's warranted.
Yeah.
But thank you, everybody.
Yeah. Thanks I missed that question, Kevin. So thanks for catching that. All right. Thank you, everybody. I hope you have a good afternoon and keep an eye out for the recap. All right.
Thanks,
folks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.